Hello everyone, and I hope that all of you are doing well today. In this video, it probably won't be too long. It's going to be me discussing how I began my journey with Santa Muerte, how I started working with her. So that's about it for this video, so let me go ahead and get into it. So basically what happened was, I was already very much interested in the occult and the supernatural and the paranormal, the metaphysical. I have a small occult library at home. I have a saint statue collection. I have a lot of occult paraphernalia. I have crystals. I have all kinds of things. Anyway, I also have always been interested into like darker imagery or dark things in addition to religious imagery. So anytime I had seen Santa Muerte statues like at the flea market, I would always be very intrigued, but I didn't know who it was. I just would see like the large Grim Reaper statues like in the botanicas, but I wouldn't know who it was, and I never knew who it was. And I actually started collecting Santa Muerte candles, like those black candles with the Grim Reapers on the front. I actually had a small collection, and each one had like a different type of artwork on them. So I had a collection of those, but I still didn't really know who she was. I just collected candles because I liked the Grim Reaper images. So I had a couple of candles, and eventually I actually ended up going to a magic shop here in Houston, and I bought a Santa Muerte statue. Although at the time I still didn't know that it was Santa Muerte. I just bought it because I thought it looked cool. It was the black robed aspect, with a scythe in her hand, and she was riding on a white horse that was like rearing up, and the horse had like gems encrusted into the reins, and the scythe also had gems like in the bladed part of it, and she had red gems where her eyes were. And I don't have that statue anymore. I gave it to somebody who I was friends with a long time ago because I moved into a smaller place and there just wasn't room for a lot of things. So I gave that statue away. This is all prior to me ever working with Santa Muerte. So I just it's like she was around in my life, or like I was attracted to her without even knowing that I was attracted to her, just from the images of her. So what ended up happening was, years later, somebody came forth, a very powerful medium who I have a lot of respect for, came forth and they basically said that I should work with her, or to go ahead and work with her. And I never knew who she was, so that prompted me to research her and look into it. And that was when I realized I had basically made a small collection of objects directly correlating with her. I had actually bought a statue of hers once upon a time without even realizing it. And so I decided to go ahead and start working with her because I was in a bad place. I think it was a while back. I was in a bad place financially speaking. And so I knew I wanted to do something to try to help alleviate the problems I was dealing with. So I actually went out to one of those local botanica, and I bought a white statue, La Blanca, for I think it was $60 for a 12-foot tall statue, which I think is a little bit overpriced, but I had a lot of problems with that particular store and how they priced and ran things. That's a different video, I guess. If you hear anything, that's a train in the background. So I bought the statue, and I made a small altar. It was a small table. I think it was from IKEA, and I put the statue on the altar, and I had a candle to her, and some flowers in a vase. And I think that was about it. I don't think I had much else on the altar that first time. There might have been a plate with some food on it, maybe. But I honestly kind of doubt it. So I just remember the room was nighttime, and it was very dark in the house. Well, in the one room where we put the altar, because we had a very small place at the time, and so we had to put it in the back room of the house, and it was night already. Night had already fallen, and so it was super dark in there, except for the candles that were lit on the altar. So I remember going in there, closing the door, and sitting down at the altar for the first time. And I remember being extremely afraid because it felt like, it didn't feel like a game, it felt like real. And I remember feeling like I was really reaching out to something, and I feel like it felt like something was reaching back, and I could feel like just really nervous. I had a lot of nerves. I knelt down in front of the altar and I tried to be brave, and I remember just staring into the face of the skeletal face of Santa Muerte, and just kind of letting my gaze soften as I stared at her face. And I remember it was like my eyes zoomed in on her face, and it was like I could hear tribal music in the background. Like it sounded like drums, like tribal drumming, and I remember hearing like some people like not yelling, but it was kind of like weird, how could I say it? It sounded like somebody, it did sound like yelling, but it didn't sound like, it sounded like when somebody is very overcome with emotion and they're excited and they're in the heat of like tribal dancing and they're calling out and yelling and making like noises that are almost animalistic. That's kind of what I heard. I heard that over the sound of like tribal drumming, and it had a very it gave me the vibe of something like very indigenous sounding drumming and chanting or screaming. And yeah, that's what I heard. I actually heard that when I looked at the statue for the first time, and it came for a moment and it went away, those sounds. And then after that I just stared at the altar and I kind of introduced myself, and I just stated that I just wanted to start basically a relationship. I wanted to start a communion. I wanted to start something new. I wanted to start working with her. I told her about me and about the things I was wanting out of life, things I was hoping to be able to have help with. I didn't ask for anything that first time. I don't think I asked for anything, but I did ask for her to allow me to work with her. That's what I asked. I didn't ask her for any favors or anything. I'm pretty sure I didn't. In fact, I don't know that I asked for any favors the first couple of times at the altar. I mean, I could be misremembering, but I feel strongly like I didn't ask for anything for a little while. I think I was more focused on just building a little bit of a relationship. And so that's how it went. As time passed, I got more things for the altar really quickly. I actually discussed it in one of my previous videos. I think it was 5 things I wish I knew before I started working with Santa Muerte. One of those things being I wish I knew that I didn't need to go out and buy every single possible thing for the altar, because that's what I actually did. And so that's basically how I got started working with Santa Muerte. I guess you could say somebody very close to the family who I had a lot of respect for was the one who was like, okay, you need to go ahead and work with her now. And I was like, I don't even know who that is. And so that's what started me on my journey. And I never looked back since. The only other thing that was funny about all of this is that apparently she was in my life the whole time. She had always been there with me even since I was a child. And it's been a few years working with her now, but she was with me the whole time. And I think I was subconsciously attracted to her imagery because her presence was with me so strongly, so much throughout my childhood, my teenage years, my young adult years. She was with me the whole time and I didn't even know it. Looking back, I can remember some dreams that had her in it, but I didn't even know who she was formally until I was almost 30. So, or at least in my late 20s, I guess I should say, like maybe 27, 28. So yeah, that's it. Nothing too exciting, just a little personal anecdote of me discussing how it was I came to start working with Santa Muerte, along with a little bit of tidbits about how it was the first time I sat down at the altar. I was very afraid, but every time I went to the altar after that, I became less and less fearful. I just wasn't used to working with spirits, working with beings. I had read a lot about it. Some people called me at that time an armchair occultist. It's when you read a lot about like magic and witchcraft and the occult. You may read about rituals and how they're performed, but you won't actually perform anything. So it's like you have all this knowledge, but you don't put it into practice for whatever reason. That's basically how I was up until that time. I was basically like an encyclopedia of the occult, but I had never put anything into practice, or at least nothing major like that. Nothing that involved spirits. So that was the first time I really... Was it? Okay, no, okay, actually I'm lying. Well, that was the first time I worked with anything that I considered to be of more intimidating, I guess. I have had prior work with a few other beings, but it was during the daytime. It was in rooms that were very well lit and bright. And this time it was nighttime. I was completely in the dark. So it was a different kind of experience. And if you want me to discuss the few beings I kind of reached out to prior to even knowing who Santa Muerte was, I can talk about that in a later video. But with that being said, I'm pretty much done with my little story. So thank you all so much for listening to me. And I will see all of you in the next one. Take care.